The Florida Department of Transportation and the National Center for Transit Research funded the development of this incident training resource, which was produced by the Center for Urban Transportation Research at the University of South Florida. The purpose of this training resource is to provide the transit systems with an overview of the procedures and guidelines needed to conduct transit incident investigations. This resource does not replace existing federally offered training courses, but rather is intended to assist the transit systems in implementing and complying with state requirements and best practices associated with bus transit safety and security incidents. This training resource provides an overview of what to do when an incident occurs and an outline of the transit system's role in conducting an investigation. In addition, this resource will provide guidance to incident investigators to conduct and support an incident investigation. This material will focus on determining causal factors, arriving at a conclusion, and establishing corrective actions. Responsibility. Transit system responsibilities for incident investigation start with an integrated incident prevention program. This program should include policies and procedures identified in the agency's System Safety Program Plan. The agency's policies and procedures provide guidelines for defensive driving, preventive maintenance, hiring and training, communication, handling of emergencies, reporting, and other safety and security-related functions. These policies are signed by the agency's management and required to be followed by management, maintenance, operators, and other employees in order to provide a safe environment for agency employees, volunteers, passengers, and the general public. All employees are expected and required to adhere to the policies and procedures adopted by their agencies to properly and diligently perform safety-related functions as a condition of employment. Procedures ensure that communications, responses, investigations, and corrective actions to transit incidents are thorough, complete, and consistent. It is critical to not only have procedures in place, but also for transit system personnel to follow the policies and procedures adopted by the organization. These policies and procedures are to be reviewed and updated annually at a minimum, or after an incident or accident has occurred. Regardless of the type of incident, every transit agency should have a system in place for notifying, communicating, and recording the information. The person involved in the investigation will vary depending on the agency, but will often include the general manager, safety and training manager, operations supervisor, dispatcher, and the person responsible for drug and alcohol testing. The operator. Communication by the transit operator is critically important to initiating the investigation process. In any emergency, the operator's role is to manage the situation to the best of their ability by following the 7 basic emergency steps. Stay calm. Assess the situation. Obtain help. Protect people, then property. Reassure and assist the passengers. Secure the scene. Gather information. Should an incident occur, the operator should obtain help and start the process of incident investigation by notifying management. Notification should be initiated by the operator involved in the incident, with the notification made immediately to dispatch, supervisor, or agency-designated staff. The operator should shut down the bus, then provide the route number, if applicable, exact location, and the vehicle number to dispatch. If shutting down the bus renders the radio inoperable, communicate with dispatch first, and then determine the need to shut off the bus. If dispatch advises to shut down the bus, and shutting down the bus will render the radio inoperable, be sure to set up with dispatch how follow-up communications will take place, such as cell phone. This is important as lines of communication need to remain open for the update of information. The operator should then activate the vehicle's 4-way flashers and set reflective triangles in accordance with DOT safety regulations. If a security incident occurs, the operator is responsible for conveying any and all information about suspicious people, packages, devices, or substances. If the driver becomes incapacitated, emergency contact phone numbers may be posted on the bus. The operator should not discuss the incident with anyone except representatives from their agency and the police. Should not make any statements regardless of the circumstance or get drawn into any discussions or arguments. Should not allow vehicles to be moved until someone arrives that can verify or witness the positions of the vehicle's length and positions of skid marks and lights on the vehicle. Depending on the agency's policies and procedures, the operator may need to contact law enforcement and emergency medical transportation if necessary. The operator should provide their name, company name. Show a valid driver's license only to law enforcement. The operator should pass out courtesy cards to each passenger and/or witness. The operator is responsible for completing an incident report. Incident reports should be completed as soon as possible after an incident. As time goes by, the operator's ability to recall specific details about the event will diminish. Every incident must be reported to the agency regardless of how minor it may seem. Failure to report an incident may be cause for disciplinary action, which will vary depending on the agency. While the term incident refers to almost any event, bus fires are an incident an operator may encounter. Bus operators can and should perform several tasks that can assist in the prevention of fires. Perform complete vehicle pre-trip inspection, including a check of electrical, fuel, and exhaust systems. Verify that fire extinguishers are on board, properly secured, and charged. During the day, check tires, wheels, and body for signs of excessive heat. Follow correct safety procedures for fueling, braking, and other activities that can lead to a fire. Monitor instruments and gauges often for signs of overheating. Use mirrors to look for signs of smoke from tires or the vehicle. There are 4 main signs for an operator to look for should a fire occur: burning odor, smoke, flames, visual or audible warning devices. It is important that the 7 basic steps to emergency management that were just discussed be employed by the operator should a bus fire occur. Additionally, the operator should pull the vehicle off the road to a safe open area, away from buildings, trees, brush, other vehicles, or anything that might catch fire. Shift the vehicle into park or neutral as applicable. Set the parking brake. Shut off the engine. Open all doors and leave the interior lights on if needed for evacuation. Evacuate all passengers. Position reflectors unless it is unsafe to do so or your passengers require your assistance or attention. Put out the fire with your fire extinguisher only if it is safe to do so. Smoke inhalation causes more deaths than fire, so if the operator is unable to control the fire, they should wait for emergency personnel. Equipment can be replaced, lives cannot. Vehicle fire and investigation procedures. All fires should be investigated by a third-party contractor, and it is important to obtain the fire department investigation report, which needs to be incorporated into the agency's incident investigation. The result from the third-party investigator should be shared with all affected personnel. It is important to subsequently develop an action plan that specifically addresses the fault and incorporate any changes to inspections, policies, or procedures immediately. It is the main responsibility of the dispatcher to complete a dispatcher's report once the operator reports an incident. The responsibilities of the dispatcher may vary from agency to agency. It is recommended that the following information be documented when an incident occurs: driver's name, time of incident, vehicle number, vehicle location and direction of travel, type of incident, number of vehicles involved, number of passengers on board, injuries, major or minor, nature and severity of injuries, number of injuries, are emergency personnel required, are police required, are tow vehicles needed. It may also be the responsibility of the dispatcher to contact law enforcement and emergency medical technicians if necessary. It may also be the responsibility of the dispatcher to contact law enforcement and emergency medical technicians if necessary. Incident investigator. The investigator should be a person who has been trained in incident investigation techniques and is familiar with the agency's policies and procedures relating to defensive driving, preventive maintenance, hiring and training, communication, handling of emergencies, discipline, and other safety and security-related functions. They should be able to evaluate evidence and reports and identify the causal factors of the event. The incident investigator in many agencies may be the safety officer and/or the operations supervisor, the agency's director, or a designated investigation team. However, this will vary depending on the size of the agency and severity of the incident. Incident investigation training is available from the U.S. DOT's Transportation Safety Institute, TSI, which offers 3 federally certified training courses, including Bus Collision Prevention and Investigation Seminar, Fundamentals of Bus Collision Investigation, and Intermediate Problems of Bus Collision Investigation. The investigation. An investigation should be done as close as possible to the occurrence of an event. It is essential that the response is immediate in order to secure, preserve, and capture the evidence before it deteriorates. There are several tools that are needed to conduct an investigation. These tools should be kept in a box in the trunk of the investigator car. These tools include flashlight and extra batteries, camera with film and extra batteries, rain gear, latex gloves, safety vest, calculator, clipboard, paper, pencil, spray paint, tape measure, measuring wheel, tape recorder in working order, hammer, masking tape, chalk, courtesy cards, radio, cones, accident, damage, and incident report forms, drug and alcohol testing notification form, sample interview questions, witness statement forms, employee incident report form. Upon arrival at an incident scene, the investigator must secure the scene and collect facts about what has occurred. It is extremely important that the investigator assemble all the facts and information that are available. The investigator should interview the involved operator as quickly as possible after the collision. The operator's account of the collision should be written on the operator's accident report form and signed by an operator. When observing the incident site, the investigator is looking to determine possible causes of the accident and should note the path of the vehicles prior to the incident, what happened during impact, the final resting place of the vehicles, and what the operator did to prevent the incident. It is also important to note lighting and visibility, obstructions or distractions, road surface conditions, climate and weather conditions, traffic signals and signs. Collecting evidence. It is important for the agency's investigator to maintain control of the evidence. While on the scene of the incident, the investigator should collect and note evidence such as marks, debris, and fluid in and around the incident scene. Roadway evidence is helpful in determining vehicle positioning and paths. This evidence consists of tire marks, roadway scars, scrapes, gouges, debris, markings that suggest the vehicle went airborne, and markings to other objects on or near the roadway. All evidence must be marked with date and time collected, location, identification of collector. Evidence should be stored in a secured location to prevent damage or alteration. Transferring of evidence should be done in writing and stored and accessed only by the investigator. Deterioration of evidence can be caused by the weather, the removal of vehicles to open the road, the separation of vehicles to aid the injured, and the recollection of the human mind to recall what took place. Tire marks. Tire marks and roadway evidence are extremely important in determining how vehicles moved into the impact point and from the impact to their final resting locations. In collision investigation, tire marks are the equivalent of a fingerprint in a criminal investigation, and just as important. If the brakes are applied suddenly and with substantial pressure, the tires will lock. The heat dissolves or melts the tars and oils on the roadway surface, creating the distinctive dark smears commonly referred to as tire marks or skid marks. On a concrete surface road, skid marks are lighter in color and are made by the rough concrete surface actually melting the tire. Skid marks tend to be straight, although can show curvature as a result of not all brake pads locking simultaneously, or due to the crown of the road. This can cause the vehicle to depart from a straight-ahead path. Front tire marks tend to be darker than rear tire marks. As evidence, skid marks show location and direction of travel for the vehicle, the driver's intention to stop, possible evidence as to the speed of the vehicle, help to determine the area of impact by the offsets in the skid. Skid marks are an extremely important piece of physical evidence to the incident investigator. They can be used to determine speed and establish the path of the vehicle while skidding. Tire marks as evidence are temporary and are affected by weather, sunlight, and traffic. Curved skid. A curved skid shows that the vehicle tires are rotating while at the same time skidding. When this happens, all four tire marks can be observed. This rotation during a skid can be initiated by the driver beginning a turning maneuver as the wheels are locked in braking. The vehicle then continues in rotation. This could also be a result of unequal braking. Skip skids. Intermittent skid marks may have been made by a vehicle bouncing along on the roadway. The length of the skid mark and the length of this space between them is generally uniform and consistent, and less than 3 to 4 feet apart. Skip skids should be measured for total length so that the gaps are included in the finished measurements. These gaps are considered to be part of the overall skid mark. Vehicle braking is not reduced during the skip portion of the skid, and gaps occur by virtue of the wheels being off the ground for such short distances. Gap skids. Gap skid marks are observed with a gap between the termination of the skid marks on the roadway and a reappearance of the skid mark some distance down the roadway. This is the result of the driver applying the brakes and releasing the brake, then reapplying the brake. The driver may have momentarily released the brakes as they believed that the collision situation ahead, in which a collision appeared imminent, has passed. The driver then applies the brake again when they realize that the initial judgment was incorrect. Tire tread print. The tire tread pattern indicates that the wheel was rolling and not skidding. The pattern of tire rubber is imprinted on a flat surface without smearing. Yaw marks. Yaw marks are tire marks left on the roadway by wheels that are sliding and rolling simultaneously. Yaw marks are always curved and have very distinctive striations. As evidence, yaw marks show a vehicle traveling too fast to negotiate a curve, the vehicle's location and direction on the roadway, driver's intention to steer rather than to stop, determination of the speed of the vehicle. When a vehicle spins out while cornering or is oriented in a different direction from its original direction of travel, yaw marks will be deposited. Often they are in the form of light parallel grooves, referred to as striations or hash marks, which run straight but are diagonal to the outline of the continuous yaw mark. They are made by the sidewall or rib of the tire. One of the most important pieces of information that can be obtained from yaw marks is the vehicle was taking a turn at a critical cornering speed and is on the verge of spinning out or slipping laterally. ABS brakes skid. An anti-lock braking system automatically prevents the wheels from locking up during braking, preserving vehicle stability and steerability. ABS brakes accomplish this goal by rapidly modulating the brake pressure. Vehicles equipped with ABS may leave faint, intermittent, visible skid marks. ABS-equipped buses do leave visible tire marks on the road, which are significantly lighter than those left by non-ABS vehicles. The tire faces are left with lightly colored abrasive marks. This evidence is very transient and will disappear within a few rotations of the tire. Debris as evidence is also important for an incident investigation. Investigators should observe the underbody of the vehicle for drag marks, ice and or water accumulation, and other objects such as vehicle parts. Significant attention should be paid to headlights and bumpers. Vehicle fluids will also provide valuable evidence. Fluid type and dispersal of these fluids are important. Investigators should note if fluids dribble, puddle, run off, or splash down. Vehicle fluids evidence types includes splashdown. Occurs when a fluid container is ruptured and a fluid splashes onto the surface. Dribble is fluid left in a trail from the area of impact to the vehicle's final rest. Puddling. Fluid forms in a puddle after leaking from the vehicle, generally under and around the vehicle. Runoff. Fluid leaks from the vehicle and runs down a grade. Soak-in. Fluid leaks from the vehicle and soaks into porous surface such as soil or gravel. Soil or gravel. Contact and induced damage. Contact damage is damage to any part of the vehicle caused by direct contact with some other object. The object can be another vehicle, a pedestrian, a fixed object, or even the road surface itself. External contact damage is shown by rubbed off and or crumpled vehicle skin, tire rubber, road material, tree bark, and even human tissue or clothing. It is also indicated by imprints of headlight housings, wheel rims, bumpers, door handles, poles, or other fixed objects. Induced damage is damage that is caused by the vehicle being hit in one area and the vehicle reacting in another. An example would be the roof of the vehicle buckling when the vehicle is hit on the front end, or parallel fractures or checkerboard patterns on a front windshield. Contact damage to vehicle glass has specific effects depending on the type of glass involved. Contact damage on safety or laminated glass used in the front windshield will leave fracture lines radiating away from the contact point. These circular lines formed what has been described as a spiderweb pattern. In addition, windows on the side and in the rear of the vehicle are typically not tempered and will simply shatter, leaving no pattern marks. Exterior damage assessment. After assessing the final positions of the vehicles, the investigator should determine if the damage present is consistent with their understanding of the collision in terms of vehicle orientation and dynamics. Many collisions which are listed as single impacts will actually involve more than one impact. For example, the vehicle bounces after impact into a fixed object, or vehicles may rotate quickly after impact and contact each other for a second time. Collision damage to the vehicle is helpful in determining how the vehicle was struck. In vehicle-to-vehicle impacts, the investigator should look for damage that matches both vehicles. Damage to wheels and tires of vehicles also require careful examination. Many times a driver will claim tire failure as being the cause of the loss of control leading to the collision. The investigator should attempt to determine tire damage caused by the collision as opposed to damage existing prior to the collision or while the vehicle was being removed from the collision scene. Roadway tire marks often indicate tire failure prior to the collision. This can be seen in the form of a flat tire or wobble scuff marks. These scuff marks indicate that the deflated tire was being distorted between the road and the rim as it rolled flat along the roadway. Blowouts which precipitate a collision exhibit unique and distinctive characteristics. Tire blowouts show characteristics which appear to have been caused by the explosive deflation of the tire, which result in ruptured cord fiber ends being frayed and fuzzy, as if torn apart by a great force. A blowout may occur before impact, during impact, or after impact. Fresh cuts or slits in the tire are associated with collision damage resulting from sharp metal edges coming in contact with the tire. Photographing the scene. Whether you use a digital camera, 35mm single lens reflex, single-use throwaway camera, or an instant camera, photography is an important part of the collision investigation. When done properly, photography can record visual proof of violations of procedures or laws, record information for later use, assist memory, be used to support or discredit witness statements, show relationships between one or multiple objects, identify vehicles and locations. Photographs should be taken as soon as possible after arriving on the scene of the incident. Photos should be taken of those things that will change quickly. While photos are very useful, they are not a substitute for written information or a field sketch. Investigators should take distance pictures first, then move in and take the close-up pictures, avoiding angles that distort what the scene really looked like. If your agency's vehicle was parked or stopped at the time of the collision, take a picture or pictures showing that the vehicle was legally parked or stopped. In general, take pictures of the following: overall scene, area of impact, fixed object damage, sight lines or distances, side obstructions, sun position, evidence, point of final rest, tire skid marks, debris, fluids, other conditions or items that may be of importance, location signs, road signs, traffic signals and stop signs, vehicle models, license plates. Additional photos should be taken showing close-up or detailed areas of damage, matching damaged parts of two vehicles, showing how they came in contact, or any other items on the vehicle that can help explain the collision. Maintain negatives and or CDs of photos with the investigation report. CDs of photos with the investigation report. Field sketching. Investigators should draw a field sketch of the collision scene showing certain features of the crash, such as the intersections, vehicles, street names, directions, traffic signals and signs, positions of witnesses, and any other objects that might be useful. It is important for the investigator to use a plain piece of paper when illustrating the field sketch. Investigators should include on their field sketch directional north, any and all measurement, and a statement that reads, "Not to scale." Police reports. Police reports will be important reference documents during the investigation process. These reports should be used, filed, referenced, and utilized as tools for the investigator's final findings. Police reports can be used to identify causal factors, and to develop recordable accident and disciplinary policies. Police reports should not be a transit system's sole source for incident investigation, but rather serve as a supplemental resource. Event data recorders. Another tool that can be used in incident investigations is the event data recorder, or the black box. In Florida, all new small buses procured under the Florida Vehicle Procurement Program are equipped with this unit. The event data recorder can be programmed to automatically store the higher level of data required for incident investigation. Once the unit recognizes that an incident has occurred, it stores all data from 45 seconds prior to the incident until the vehicle comes to rest. By querying the data held within the event recorder, data can be extracted to tell what a driver and vehicle was doing for up to 45 seconds prior to the incident in great detail. This information includes vehicle speed, engine speed, lateral and longitudinal accelerations, braking, accelerating, swerving, as well as operation of the vehicle equipment, signals, etc. This data is saved in its raw form and is viewable using Microsoft Access database software. The interview process. Interviewing both at the scene of the collision and afterward is an important component of collision investigations. Interviews may be conducted with operators, drivers of involved vehicles, non-involved witnesses, police, fire, EMS, passengers, and maintenance personnel. Although it is best to conduct interviews at the scene, there are times that they may need to be conducted later. Later interviews may be conducted over the phone or in person, but it is preferred that they be done in person at a neutral location. If possible, record the interview, whether on the phone or in person. Make sure you ask permission to record the interview prior to beginning the process. Once the interview begins, be courteous and patient. If the interviewee is a witness to the collision and not directly involved, then they are under no obligation to speak with you and should be treated with respect. It is important when interviewing to listen more than you speak, to ask open-ended questions, and to take notes. You should not write the statement for the witness, but assist them in filling out the statement form. You may ask them to identify sequences of events and have the witness draw sketches of the scene. Drug and alcohol testing. Federally funded public transit systems must comply with regulatory requirements, establish and maintain a drug-free workplace, and test safety-sensitive employees for prohibited drug use and alcohol misuse throughout their tenure of employment. Regulations have been written to establish strict guidelines and rules involving all aspects of drug and alcohol testing programs. The regulations include specifics on when an employer must conduct drug and alcohol testing following an accident or incident. Testing employees for prohibited drug and possible alcohol misuse is required after all accidents and incidents that meet the FTA-established criteria. The transit system's drug and alcohol program manager or designated employer representative must be trained to identify which accidents meet the FTA thresholds for drug and alcohol testing. This individual should be notified immediately following any accident or incident. All safety-sensitive employees whose actions could have contributed to the accident are subject to post-accident drug and alcohol testing when the FTA criteria to test are met. This may include operators, mechanics, dispatchers, or others. If it is determined that post-accident drug and alcohol tests are required, the testing must be performed as soon as possible following the accident. If an alcohol test is not administered within 2 hours following the accident, the employer must still attempt to administer the test. In addition, the employer must prepare and maintain on file a record stating the reasons the test was not promptly administered. If an alcohol test is still not administered within 8 hours following the accident, the employer shall cease attempts to administer an alcohol test and shall maintain records as to why the test was not performed. Likewise, if a drug test has not been performed within the first 8 hours following the accident, the employer must document the reason for delay and continue to attempt to administer the test. After 32 hours, the employer must cease attempts to conduct the drug test and document why the test was not performed. After 32 hours, the employer must cease attempts to conduct the drug test and document why the test was not performed. Employers must assure that testing services are available at all times and in all locations where safety-sensitive functions are performed. Unavailability of testing sites is an unacceptable explanation for not conducting a test. Employers should review their operations to determine if there are locations or time periods that cannot be served by the primary collection site. If gaps in testing coverage exist, the employer must establish alternative procedures in anticipation of accidents during these times. If procedures are not established in advance, the employer may be unable to administer required tests. The circumstances that require a post-accident test for drugs are the same circumstances that require a post-accident test for alcohol. Every accident that meets the FTA accident definition must result in both a drug and alcohol test. Guidelines for Recordability. The Transportation Safety Institute, TSI, recently published the Guidelines to Determine Collision and Incident Recordability. TSI's intent in developing these guidelines has been to develop a tool to assist transit agencies in determining recordability, preventability of collisions and incidents based on a high standard of defensive driving. The guide provides a series of situations and incident scenarios, along with examples of action that would make it a recordable. While this resource serves as a valuable guide and details a variety of situations and incidents, it is not possible for every collision and incident that may occur to be addressed. Therefore, there is a great deal of leeway or discretion provided to a transit property, including the discretion of a company-adopted definition of the word reasonable. A recordable collision is one which occurs because the operator fails to act in a reasonably expected manner to prevent it. Failure to learn what caused a collision or incident increases the chance of similar incidents occurring in the future. An investigator should examine each incident as recordable and determine whether the operator drove defensively and demonstrated an acceptable level of skill and knowledge. The judgment of what is reasonable should be based on an agency-adopted definition, thus establishing a goal for its safety management. Incident Review Board. It is recommended that all transit systems, regardless of size or location, have an incident review board or committee. A review board is established to allow a committee decision on the recordability of a collision rather than allow one supervisor to make the decision. The review boards take any personality conflicts and preconceived bias out of the decision-making process and determine recordability of the incidents and recommend steps to be taken to prevent similar events in the future. Members of the Incident Review Board should have an understanding of and experience with the agency's policies and procedures, defensive driving, maintenance, and training programs. Incident review boards are generally composed of 3 to 7 members, usually an odd number, that meet at intervals which allow them to consider incidents on a current event basis. Board membership should include operator representatives, management representatives, and a supervisor assigned safety responsibilities. An outside person, such as a representative from the insurance company or risk manager, may be asked to be a member of the board. Rotating of all board members is recommended to promote a wide interest in the safety program, and members should not serve more than 2 years. Incident Review Board setup will vary depending on the agency. The primary role of the safety manager is to chair the review board. The chair presents the facts of the incident and outlines the reasons for considering the incident recordable. Meetings are held at times that are convenient for all board members. Each member is provided with a copy of all written reports such as the driver's report, police reports of the incident, and any other information that might be helpful in making a decision of the recordability of the incident. The involved operator may appear before the board to state their own case and present any viewpoints on the facts. The operator should be asked to leave before the vote on recordability is taken. A written record should be made of the board's decision and the reasons for the decision, as well as a record of any recommended corrective actions. All corrective actions recommended by the board should be discussed, assigned to the appropriate areas, and implemented. The corrective action plan may include changes to policies and procedures, as well as changes to existing operator training and refresher training based on the cause or contributing causes of the incident. These same materials can also be used for in-house publications, bulletins, and operator training. When maintenance deficiencies or vehicle equipment failure are found to be the cause of the incident, a corrective action plan should be developed to prevent similar events in the future. The corrective action plan may include changes to policies and procedures related to maintenance, as well as changes to existing and refresher maintenance training. Grading system. Each agency should have in place a grading policy that addresses negligent acts which results in recordable, preventable injuries or incidents to employees, passengers, or the general public. Disciplinary policies are set by the transit agency or local government agency. The types of disciplinary actions for preventable incidents vary greatly from agency to agency, depending on the agency and the severity of the incident. It is important for each agency to have a grading policy in place, to enforce the policy, and to stick to the policy for all employees. Here is an example of what a disciplinary action policy might look like. First occurrence, a verbal warning or a one-day suspension including retraining and a written warning. Second occurrence, one-day suspension and a written warning or up to 5 days suspension and a written warning that one more preventable will be grounds for termination within 12 months of the first preventable. Third occurrence, the employee will be terminated or a written warning and 3-day suspension. Fourth occurrence, termination. Forms. As part of the Incident Investigation Toolbox resource, best practices, sample forms, and templates are provided on this DVD for your reference. The Florida Department of Transportation, under contract with the Center for Urban Transportation Research, developed a tool to help rural transit agencies easily track, analyze, and report accidents, security incidents, and other minor incidents. The tool utilizes Microsoft Access and allows the transit systems to easily enter accident and security incident information into a standardized form, run queries, and view reports. Agencies can use the existing fields, queries, and reports in the database reports or customize them to meet their agency's needs. The database provides transit systems with the ability to analyze and report common trends in incident data over time. Transit systems can then identify changes to existing driver training programs and/or the need for refresher training based on the types and frequency of incidents. The database is available online at www.cutr.usf.edu/bussafety/core/data.html. Incident investigation is an important part of the transit system management. This resource has provided an overview of methodologies, policies, rules, and procedures for incident investigation. However, it is recommended that transit incident investigators further their knowledge base by attending federally supported investigation classes from organizations such as the USDOT's Transportation Safety Institute. We encourage you to review the file content of this DVD for forms, templates, policies, procedures, and other documents that can serve as resources during the incident investigations.